Busby family of TLC's OutDaughtered donates $75,000 of toys to Harvey victims. The Busby family of TLC's OutDaughtered became known to millions of viewers for something very simple yet very rare on television: honesty. Long before headlines, brand deals, and social media fame, Adam and Danielle Busby were simply a young couple trying to raise a growing family in Southeast Texas. When their quintuplets arrived, followed by the challenges that came with them, audiences watched not because everything was perfect, but because everything was real. That same sense of realism and responsibility would later shape one of the family's most meaningful moments off camera, when the Busbys stepped forward to help families devastated by Hurricane Harvey, donating $75,000 worth of toys to children who had lost almost everything. Hurricane Harvey was not just another storm for Texas. It was a historic disaster that reshaped neighborhoods, displaced families, and left entire communities underwater. For days, rain poured relentlessly, flooding homes, schools, churches, and hospitals. Streets became rivers. Cars disappeared beneath murky water. Families were rescued by boats and helicopters with little more than the clothes they were wearing. For children especially, the storm did more than damage property. It disrupted their sense of safety, routine, and joy. Toys, books, and familiar comforts were washed away, leaving behind trauma that adults often underestimate. For the Busby family, Harvey was not something happening somewhere else. It was happening at home. Texas is where they live, where they raise their daughters, where their extended family and friends are rooted. As floodwaters rose across the state, the Busbys watched the same footage everyone else did, but with a deeper emotional connection. They recognized neighborhoods similar to their own. They saw children the same age as their girls standing in shelters, overwhelmed and confused, clutching whatever they managed to save. Adam and Danielle have often spoken about gratitude. Their journey to parenthood was not easy, and raising 6 daughters brought challenges few families experience. But alongside the stress came blessings: health, support, and opportunities. OutDaughtered gave them a platform far larger than they ever imagined. With that platform came a question they never took lightly: what responsibility comes with being seen and supported by so many people? When Harvey struck, the answer became clear. Helping did not mean posting a single message or making a symbolic gesture. It meant doing something tangible, something that reached the people most affected in a direct and meaningful way. For Adam and Danielle, that meant focusing on children. Children process disasters differently than adults. They may not fully understand what happened, but they feel the loss deeply. A favorite doll, a set of building blocks, a stuffed animal slept with every night. These items represent comfort and normalcy. Losing them can feel like losing a piece of stability. Danielle, as a mother, understood that instinctively. Watching her own daughters play, laugh, and find comfort in small things made the absence of those things for other children even more heartbreaking. The idea of donating toys was not about extravagance or publicity. It was about restoration, bringing back moments of joy, even in temporary shelters. Giving kids something to hold, something to smile about, something that reminded them they were not forgotten. $75,000 worth of toys is not a small gesture. It requires coordination, planning, and commitment. The Busbys worked with local organizations and relief groups to ensure the toys reached families who truly needed them. This wasn't about dumping boxes and moving on. It was about understanding where the need was greatest and responding thoughtfully. What made the donation especially meaningful was its personal nature. These were not random items chosen without care. The Busbys selected toys with children of different ages in mind, from toddlers to older kids. Dolls, trucks, games, art supplies, items that encourage creativity, comfort, and interaction. Danielle often spoke about imagining children opening those toys after days or weeks of fear and uncertainty, and how even a small smile could make a difference. Adam, too, approached the effort with seriousness. He has always been open about the pressure of providing for his family and the weight of responsibility he feels as a father. In moments like this, that sense of responsibility extended beyond his own household. Being a father of 6 daughters made him acutely aware of how vulnerable children can be and how much they rely on adults to step up during crises. The Busbys never framed their donation as heroic. In their minds, it was simply the right thing to do. They recognized that while they could not rebuild homes or reverse the damage, they could offer comfort. They could use what they had: resources, visibility, and compassion to help lighten the emotional burden carried by families who were already overwhelmed. Fans of OutDaughtered responded strongly when news of the donation spread. Many viewers had watched the Busbys navigate sleepless nights, medical scares, and everyday chaos. Seeing them act with generosity off-screen reinforced what many already believed, that the family's values were genuine. Social media filled with messages of gratitude, admiration, and inspiration. Some fans were moved to donate themselves, creating a ripple effect that extended beyond the original act. What's important to understand is that this donation was not an isolated moment of charity designed for attention. It fit into a broader pattern of how the Busbys approach their public life. They have consistently emphasized faith, community, and responsibility. When disaster struck their home state, those values were tested, and they responded in alignment with what they had always preached. Danielle has spoken openly about how motherhood changes perspective. Before having children, disasters might have registered as tragic but distant. After becoming a mother, especially to multiple young children, every story involving kids hits closer to home. Imagining her own daughters displaced, scared, or without their favorite comforts was unbearable. That empathy fueled action. The donation also highlighted something often overlooked in disaster relief: emotional recovery. While food, water, and shelter are critical, emotional healing is just as important, especially for children. Toys are not luxuries in that context. They're tools for coping. Play allows children to process trauma, regain a sense of control, and express feelings they may not yet have words for. In shelters across Texas, children receiving those toys experienced moments of relief. For some, it was the first time they smiled since the storm. For parents, seeing their children momentarily distracted from fear and loss was a gift in itself. Those moments may seem small in the grand scale of recovery, but they matter deeply. The Busbys did not document every step of the donation process for television. Much of it happened quietly, away from cameras. That choice speaks volumes. In an age where acts of kindness are often measured by likes and shares, the family focused on impact rather than exposure. When they did speak about it, it was to encourage others to help in whatever way they could, not to seek praise. Adam and Danielle have always acknowledged that their ability to give comes from the support they receive from fans, networks, and opportunities tied to OutDaughtered. In that sense, the donation was also a way of paying that support forward. They viewed it as a shared effort, something made possible by a community that believed in them and their story. The aftermath of Hurricane Harvey stretched on long after the news cycle moved on. Homes took months or years to rebuild. Families faced financial strain, emotional exhaustion, and uncertainty. In that long recovery process, moments of kindness stood out. The Busbys' donation became one of those moments people remembered not because of its dollar value alone, but because of its heart. For the Busby children themselves, the experience was also educational. Growing up in the public eye can create a sense of privilege that's difficult to navigate. By involving their daughters in conversations about helping others, Adam and Danielle reinforce lessons about gratitude and empathy. Understanding that not every child has what they have is an important part of raising grounded, compassionate kids. This act of generosity also reflected a broader truth about the Busby family. Their fame has never been the center of their identity. At their core, they are parents trying to raise kind, resilient children. When faced with a tragedy that affected their community, they responded as parents first, celebrities second. The donation of $75,000 worth of toys did not solve every problem created by Hurricane Harvey. No single act could. But it brought light into dark moments. It reminded families that they were seen. It showed children that strangers cared about their happiness. And it demonstrated how public figures can use their influence responsibly. In the years since Harvey, The story of the Busby's donation has remained a powerful example of compassionate action. It is often mentioned not as a headline-grabbing stunt, but as a sincere response to suffering. That distinction matters. It separates performative charity from meaningful giving. The Busby family's journey on OutDaughtered has always been about more than raising quintuplets. It has been about resilience, faith, and community. Their response to Hurricane Harvey fits seamlessly into that narrative. It showed viewers that the values discussed on screen were not scripted, they were lived. When disasters strike, people often ask what difference one family can make. The Busbys answered that question clearly. One family, when willing to act, can bring comfort to thousands. One decision, rooted in empathy, can inspire countless others. And one moment of generosity can leave a lasting impact long after the floodwaters recede. Ultimately, the story of the Busbys donating toys to Harvey victims is not just about money or fame. It is about choosing compassion in the face of crisis. It is about understanding that children need joy just as much as they need safety. And it is about using whatever platform you have, large or small, to help those who need it most. That is why this moment stands out in the history of OutDaughtered. Not because it was dramatic or televised, but because it was human. It reflected who the Busby family truly is when the cameras are off: parents, neighbors, Texans, and people who believe that kindness should always come first. OutDaughtered. Riley Busby, terrified, disobeys. Riley Busby has always stood out among the Busby quintuplets. From the earliest seasons of OutDaughtered, viewers noticed that she carried a personality that was both strong and sensitive at the same time. She was outspoken, curious, quick to question rules, and often more emotionally reactive than her sisters. As the years passed and the girls grew older, Riley's behavior became a frequent topic of conversation among fans, not because she was bad, but because she was honest with her feelings in a way many children are not. Fear has played a quiet but powerful role in Riley's story. Like many kids growing up under the watchful eye of cameras, schedules, expectations, and constant comparison, Riley has experienced moments where her emotions overwhelmed her ability to follow instructions. When fear takes over, logic often steps aside. In Riley's case, that fear sometimes translated into disobedience, not out of disrespect, but out of emotional overload. The Busby household is not an ordinary one. Raising 6 daughters, including the only all-girl quintuplets in the United States, means that structure is necessary. Adam and Danielle Busby rely on routines, rules, and teamwork to keep daily life functioning. In such an environment, when one child breaks from the structure, it is noticeable immediately. Riley's reactions often disrupt the rhythm, not because she intends to, but because she struggles internally before reacting externally. Riley's fear does not always appear obvious at first glance. Sometimes it shows up as hesitation. Sometimes it looks like stubbornness. Other times it comes across as refusal to comply with simple requests. To the outside world, this can look like misbehavior. To her parents, and to viewers who have watched her closely, it often looks like anxiety expressing itself in a child who has not yet learned how to manage it. Children process fear differently than adults. Where an adult may verbalize concern or withdraw quietly, a child may cry, argue, shut down, or push back against authority. Riley has shown all of these responses at different times. When she feels uncertain, pressured, or afraid of failure, she sometimes resists instructions as a form of self-protection. Disobedience becomes a shield. Education has been one of the areas where Riley's fear became more visible. Early on, Danielle and Adam noticed that Riley was academically advanced, especially in reading and comprehension. With that came higher expectations. Being placed in advanced learning situations can be exciting, but it can also be terrifying for a child who feels the pressure to perform. Riley, aware of her abilities, also became aware of the risk of disappointing others. Fear of failure is powerful. For Riley, that fear occasionally turned into avoidance. When faced with tasks that challenged her emotionally rather than intellectually, she sometimes resisted participation. From the outside, it could appear as defiance. Internally, it was often a child grappling with the possibility that she might not meet expectations placed on her at a young age. The presence of cameras adds another layer. While OutDaughtered presents a loving and supportive family, it also documents real struggles. Riley's emotional moments are not private, they are shared with millions. Even when the filming feels normal to the family, it still changes the environment. Children are perceptive. They sense when moments are being watched, recorded, and remembered. Fear can be amplified when a child feels exposed. For Riley, moments of disobedience have sometimes coincided with moments of vulnerability. She may feel overwhelmed by attention, misunderstood by adults, or frustrated when she cannot articulate what is wrong. Instead of explaining, she reacts. Danielle Busby has often expressed concern about balancing discipline with emotional understanding. As a mother of 6, she cannot afford to ignore rules, yet she also recognizes that each child has different needs. Riley's fear-driven disobedience forces Danielle and Adam to constantly adjust their parenting approach. What works for one quintuplet may not work for another. Riley is not disobedient all the time. In fact, she is often caring, affectionate, and deeply thoughtful. She asks big questions. She notices details. She shows empathy beyond her years. That complexity is part of why her moments of fear stand out so sharply. When a child capable of such awareness suddenly shuts down or rebels, it signals something deeper. Sibling dynamics also play a role. Growing up as one of 5 same-age sisters means constant comparison, even when parents try to avoid it. Riley is aware of her differences. She knows she thinks differently, feels differently, and reacts differently. That awareness can be isolating. Fear grows in isolation. When Riley disobeys, it is rarely about the rule itself. It is about what the rule represents in that moment. It may represent pressure, loss of control, or fear of embarrassment. For a child who values autonomy and understanding, being told what to do without explanation can feel threatening. Adam Busby has often taken a calm, reasoning approach with Riley. He tries to talk through emotions to understand the why behind her behavior. Even so, there are moments when fear overrides communication. Riley may refuse to engage, resist direction, or emotionally withdraw. These moments are not failures of parenting. They are reflections of a child learning emotional regulation in real time. Viewers sometimes judge Riley harshly, forgetting that she is growing up on camera. What might be a private meltdown in another household becomes public discussion in hers. Fear of being seen as the difficult one may actually worsen her reactions. When a child senses a label forming around them, they may unconsciously live up to. Disobedience, in Riley's case, is not about rebellion. It is about survival. Children seek safety. When they do not feel safe emotionally, they act out. Riley's fear responses suggest a child who deeply cares about doing well but struggles with the weight of expectation. As Riley grows older, her awareness increases. She becomes more capable of reflection, but also more sensitive to criticism. Fear shifts from immediate reactions to internalized stress. Disobedience may decrease in frequency, but anxiety may take new forms if not addressed with patience and support. Danielle has spoken openly about the challenges of parenting children with different emotional needs. She acknowledges that Riley requires reassurance, explanation, and sometimes extra space to process feelings. This does not mean rules disappear. It means rules are paired with empathy. The Busby parents do not excuse disobedience, but they do seek understanding. That balance is difficult, especially in a household where fairness matters. Treating children equally does not always mean treating them the same. Riley's fear reminds the family of that truth. Riley's story resonates with many viewers because it reflects real childhood struggles. Many children disobey not because they lack respect, but because they lack tools. Emotional regulation is learned, not innate. Riley is learning in front of an audience. Fear can be triggered by change, and the Busby family has experienced plenty of it. New homes, health scares, school transitions, and public attention all contribute to emotional instability. For Riley, change often disrupts her sense of control. Disobedience becomes a way to regain it. There is also the question of identity. Riley knows she is the smart one. While this is often praised, it can also be a burden. Fear of not living up to that identity may cause her to resist situations where she feels unsure. Disobedience becomes avoidance. What makes Riley's journey meaningful is not the moments of fear, but the way her family responds. They do not dismiss her feelings. They address behavior while acknowledging emotion. This approach teaches Riley that fear is valid, but actions still have consequences. Over time, Riley has shown growth. She becomes more communicative. She begins to explain when she feels overwhelmed. Disobedience does not disappear overnight, but it evolves. Fear loses some of its power when it is named and understood. Riley Busby is not defined by her moments of disobedience. She is defined by her resilience, her intelligence, and her emotional depth. Fear is part of her story, but it is not the ending. It is a chapter in a longer journey towards self-awareness. In a world quick to label children, Riley reminds viewers that behavior is communication. When a child disobeys, it is often a signal, not a statement. Fear speaks when words fail. The Busby family's willingness to share these moments offers something valuable, a reminder that parenting is not about perfection, and childhood is not about constant obedience. It is about growth, understanding, and learning how to face fear without letting it control actions. Riley's fear-driven disobedience is not a flaw. It is evidence of a sensitive mind navigating a complex environment. With continued support, patience, and love, fear becomes less frightening, and obedience becomes a choice rather than a battle. As Riley continues to grow, her story will likely shift from one of fear and resistance to one of confidence and self-trust. The foundation is already there. The courage is already there.